Hello and welcome. This video is brought to you by the Minnesota Department of Health. We are going to show viewers like you about the rights people have when living at group homes and residences that are supervised. This video shows how people have the right to refuse care. You will see a couple different examples of how someone is denied the right to refuse care and what you can do if this happens to you. People have the right to refuse care. In other words, if you make decisions for yourself, you have the right to refuse medical care, medication, and dietary restrictions. The staff will explain to you what can happen if you refuse care. Here is an example of a person who refuses care and what happens when he does refuse care.
Hi, Jason. It's time to take your afternoon medication.
No, Jean, I'm not taking any more medication today. I really don't like how I feel when I take the medication.
Okay, well, you know your doctor prescribed this medication for you. You need it to control your blood pressure. If you don't take this medication, your blood pressure will get too high. You have to take your medication.
No, Jean, I'm not taking any more medication today.
Okay, you do have the right to refuse your medication, but I need to let you know of a few things first. First, I will document that you refuse to take your medication. Second, I will record this in your medical record. And finally, I will call your doctor to let her know that you're refusing to take your medication.
Okay, but I'm not taking my medication today. Maybe I'll take it tomorrow.
What you just saw is a situation where a resident refused to receive care. In this example, he refused to take his medication as prescribed by the doctor. Although we encourage you to always follow your doctor's instructions, if you make the decision for yourself, you have the right to refuse care. Staff will explain what medical or psychological results might happen if you refuse care. People have the right to refuse care, including the right to refuse medical care, medication, and refuse dietary restrictions. The staff will explain to you what can happen if you refuse care. Here is an example of a person who refuses dietary restrictions and what can happen if you decide to refuse dietary restrictions.
Hi, Pedro.
Hey, Reed. Are you gonna eat that whole bag of potato chips?
You know, those have a lot of calories.
No, I'm not going to eat the whole bag of potato chips, and yes, I do know that they have a whole lot of calories, but I actually, it's just a one-day snack. I'm going to eat this junk food for today and have something healthier like carrots for tomorrow.
Well, your doctor did say he wanted you to eat less junk food.
I know, but like I said, it's only a one-day thing.
All right, well, you do have the right to refuse dietary restrictions, but since your doctor asked, I'm going to have to document this on your medical record.
What you just saw is a situation where a resident refused to receive care. In this example, he refused dietary restrictions and ate potato chips, even though his doctor advised him not to eat junk food. If you make decisions for yourself, you have the right to refuse care. If you do refuse care, then the staff member will document it and record it in your medical file. If a staff member forces you to receive care like taking medication or doesn't allow you to eat your potato chips, you have the right to file a complaint. Know your rights. If you want to file a complaint or report suspected maltreatment of a vulnerable adult, call the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center, MAARC, at 1-844-880-1574. Staff are available to take your call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Minnesota encourages good faith reporting of suspected maltreatment of vulnerable adults by any person. If you make a report, your identity is confidential and cannot be released without a court order. You can also go to the Minnesota Department of Health website for a full list of the Bill of Rights for supervised living facilities and other videos. www.health.state.mn.us. For Minnesota residents, contact the Office of Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities, OMHDD. Know your rights. If you or someone you know is in need of legal aid, the Minnesota Disability Law Center, MDLC, provides free, civil, legal assistance to individuals with disabilities statewide on legal issues related to their disabilities. Abuse and neglect issues are a high priority for the Minnesota Disability Law Center. For assistance, visit the Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid Minnesota Disability Law Center website at www.mylegalaid.org or call 1-800-292-4150. You can also reach the Minnesota Disability Law Center by email at mndlc@mylegalaid.org.